Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And please share this episode with a friend or colleague. I am your host, Owen Lefebvre, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. Today, we are joined by Greg Holland, the president for the Straz Center for the Performing Arts here in Tampa. With more than 25 years experience, Greg joined the Straz in October of 22 after serving as the president of Brown Holland Entertainment. I'm going to leave it there, Greg, and turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your background, because it is fascinating. You've got some great stories. So tell us your story.
Thank you. First of all, Owen, thanks for having the Straz Center and having me here today. And I'm really proud to be here. I'm a Bank of Tampa customer, so it feels like the right thing to do.
And it's an important cultural asset. So,
yeah.
And we're delighted to have you here in Tampa.
Well, thank you. I've been here about 18 months, and it's been a wonderful 18 months. Prior, I moved from San Francisco. I spent most of my career in the commercial live entertainment business. And of course, the reason I say that is a lot of people don't understand that the Straz Center is a not-for-profit 501c3. And we get about 20% of our operating capital from donations. So I've learned to say we're a nonprofit. And but my career before this—
donations welcome, in other words.
Donations are welcome. And the Bank of Tampa has always been really generous with the Straz Center. We appreciate that. But I've had a really fortunate career. I've executive produced several Broadway shows. When I was in San Francisco, we launched 13 world premiere Broadway shows, starting with Wicked. We did the world premiere of Wicked in 2003. That's how old I am. We did that in 2003. And so every time I see something from Wicked, whether I like it or not, I remember it from 2003. I love everything about Wicked. We did Beautiful, the Carole King musical. We launched that. Legally Blonde, a new show for Broadway called Hugh Jackman on Broadway. So we got to work with Hugh Jackman.
Okay.
On Broadway, we produced with the artist that was then known as Mos Def, with Jeffrey Wright, who was just nominated for an Academy Award. 2 plays on Broadway with Denzel Washington. So it's been a really wonderful experience and career. And I'm happy to come to the Straz Center and work in this wonderful nonprofit institution, because I think everyone knows, Owen, that the Straz Center is a top 10 performing arts center in the United States.
Yes.
We're all so fortunate to have that here. So I'm learning a lot. I have patient board of trustees led by Bank of Tampa's Bill West. He's the chairman of the board of trustees, and an incredible collegiate staff.
So you said you got into this business by accident.
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit.
Well, I think the things I got to do were by accident.
Okay.
You know, I went to the University of Texas in Austin. I had my first job when I was 19 years old, so it's actually longer than 25 years. But I like 25 years. It sounds much younger. And, you know, I worked at the Paramount Theater, which was this gorgeous, almost 100-year-old theater where we brought through touring shows and touring music artists. Do you remember the Thompson Twins, the kind of new wave pseudo disco group before they were anyone? We had Thompson Twins there.
I don't. Sorry,
you're young, man. You are so young, Owen. That hurts. But I'll tell you that I got that. I had that experience starting at 19 while I was in college, and went to work for Houston Grand Opera.
So the arts drew you in early.
I studied it. Okay. I studied it in college, and it's such an amazing thing to do for a living. And what I love about doing this podcast with you, Owen, is that we get to talk about the arts as business. And you know, I think, you know, we just had the Oscars. That was fun to watch, and the whole time I'm watching. The whole musical number, I Am Ken, you know, and I thought that is, first of all, that should be a musical, like tomorrow. Barbie should be a musical, especially with that. And I realize they're doing that because they're still selling streaming for Barbie.
Oh, sure.
They're selling the soundtrack, and I understand that. That's art as business. And we're all drawn in by that and entertained by it. But that's, of course, why it exists. And I also am a guest lecturer at Boston University for a graduate program, and we talk about the arts as business. And I find it really one of the most exciting things about what I do.
So you developed shows in San Francisco.
We did.
Is there a Barbie show that's a Ken show that's coming to Tampa and developed here?
Do you know, I would love to do that. So I think Warner Brothers possibly produced Barbie. And if that's true, I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm terrible with secrets. We are doing a world premiere play next fall.
Okay.
At the Straz Center.
That's
but I can't tell you what the name is. It is. But part of the IP comes from Warner Brothers.
Okay.
So we'll be talking to Warner Brothers.
That's good. So there's a chance, you're saying.
Right. And by the way, I think everyone knows this, but IP is intellectual property. So in the arts and film, music, Broadway world, when we say IP, we're talking about existing brands that could become.
That's an important distinction. I knew what you're
entertainment.
talking about.
Yeah.
And glossed right over it, but some folks maybe aren't familiar with it. But so you're new to Tampa Bay.
Yes.
What do you think? What's your impression?
I'm having the best time.
Okay.
And when I was invited to interview for this job, I thought, I'm not a nonprofit. I come from commercial live entertainment. In a former life and career, when I was based in New York, I worked with the then Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center. I worked for a company that curated and presented the Broadway series here. So I was in Tampa several times, loved it.
Okay, so some familiarity. You weren't coming in blind, per
Got
se.
to know my amazing predecessor, Judy Lisi. Well, she's been my friend for 30 years. So I've been in this business longer than 25. We now know it's at least 30.
We're getting a lot of hints.
Yeah.
We're going to hone in on your age.
And you could Google it. But what I would tell you is that Tampa has always been one of those places that sells a lot of tickets for shows and sports. So top 20 city in terms of ticket sales. I was just talking to someone at the Buccaneers, one of the executives today, and we were talking about Taylor Swift and the amazing business and the amazing work that Taylor Swift did at the Raymond James Stadium.
I did see the show. So
you did.
I'm not an official Swiftie, but I mean, she could sell me.
Yeah. I think all of us are official Swifties now. But what I would say about that is we just had this conversation about Tampa. If you want to sell a lot of tickets and find great audiences, you come to Tampa Bay. And so I knew that about Tampa. It was so gracious that this board of directors asked me and a whole bunch of others to interview for the job because I didn't have a nonprofit background. I was telling Bill West last week, he said, you seemed relaxed. And I said, I was relaxed because I thought they'll never hire me. I'm not a nonprofit person. And so I was invited to do it. And I thought, I love Tampa Bay. Forbes magazine, my financial advisor, had emailed me this article from Forbes saying that Tampa is one of the top 5 fastest growing metropolitan areas in the country. Mm-hmm. And I read that. I also know that means expensive, but I'd already lived in New York and San Francisco, so I understood expensive.
Less expensive than both of those places.
Well, we may argue that a little bit. Or it depends on where you are, but yes, it really felt, and it is true. I think Tampa and Tampa Bay is the place to be right now. It's the place where there's business opportunity. I think it's the place where there's absolutely the arts are growing. So there's nothing like being somewhere first, and I feel incredibly fortunate to be here right now.
No, we're excited to have you, and I hear all great things. So,
thank you.
Straz is already a beautiful facility, and we were talking earlier before the camera started rolling. To see it at night is exceptional. You've expansion plans are planned, at least not underway yet, and they look amazing. So, what is the status on the expansion?
Well, the easy answer is this: we'll be in construction by late fall of this year.
Okay.
That's not easy, but that's the easy answer. But to give it a little more color, what I would tell you is when I got here in October of 22, by December we had done some preliminary pricing, and also we were beginning to get a sense of how permitting might work or not work for this expansion. looking at both of those things, we realized we needed to go through a redesign.
Now that redesign, was that value engineering? Was it because of the complications of getting a permit? Both? I mean, what prompted that?
What really prompted it was all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized we weren't value engineering, which of course is cutting things back and finding less expensive ways to do it. We realized we were now taking a gorgeous design, looking at it in other ways to make sure it fit our budget. Because as a 501c3 or any business, if I were Bank of Tampa, I would want that project to fit in the budget. So we really spent time with the architects, with our amazing contractors. We're working with creative contracting, and we found a way to fulfill and, in fact, expand our programming while fitting into our existing budget. So we've done that. What that will do, Owen, for people who know the Straz Center, is we will build 2 brand new buildings to the north end of the Straz Center. We've designed and we'll build this gorgeous veil that will move west toward the river.
Oh, it looks amazing.
It's amazing. What that will do is create a new outdoor space that's covered for events, for artists. The north end buildings, those 2 new buildings, will be wrapped by the veil. So it will simply look like we have this gorgeous undulating veil that's new to the Straz. But it also masks 2 north end buildings.
Okay.
The most exciting of those buildings, Owen, is we're building a giant new extension to our education center. A lot of people don't know that one reason the Straz Center is a top 10 performing arts center is we have an accredited school called the Patel Conservatory that serves as a component of the Straz Center. We annually, through our school through our curriculum programs and our camps, we'll have around 6,000 students in classes.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that big. Oh.
It's big. This year we'll bring in about 40,000 students to our on-campus field trip programs, where students come from schools around the region to attend free of charge programs in our theaters. And then off campus, all of this is under our education program that we're expanding. We serve another 60,000 students, people in retirement homes, homeless shelters, community services, off campus annually throughout the region. So a big piece of what the Straz Center does is education, outreach. We also have veterans programs where we work in arts and healing.
Okay.
We were one of the first performing arts centers to begin that kind of work.
With the base right here, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And we work with both of the VA hospitals. So, when I was learning before I got this job and I learned about the Straz Center and its programs, I realized, man, that the next step in my career, which is community service, feels like something that, very few people have an opportunity to do professionally. So I'm learning about all that. But so in that expansion, that's a long way around the education building, isn't it? But there's a lot happening there.
So in terms of additional capacity, I mean, what can you accomplish with the new buildings?
We expect in the first calendar year, in terms of attendance growth, about 20% attendance growth.
Okay.
But by the end of the second year, we see that at about 38%. So those are big, as you know, you work at a bank, those are big jumps.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what will happen.
Our shareholders would love to see 20% growth. If you're listening to the shareholders, it's not safe for a bank. So
I've never done that commercially. But what I would say is the other exciting piece of that is moving west toward the river. The second building will house on the first floor a new high-end dining restaurant, a new casual dining cafe. The second floor will be a brand new donors club because, like I said, we're a nonprofit and there's a place for donors to go that's special just for them. And then on top of that is a rooftop bar. What we think will be one of the largest rooftop bars in Tampa.
Okay.
And a place for music, a place for performances, just a place to relax. And all of that is available to anyone who wants to come, whether they're coming to see a show or not. The other thing that will happen at this expansion is we're moving out in a grand terrace to the Riverwalk. one giant, beautiful terrace. It will have a bistro that focuses on people going up and down the river, really casual. And then we'll have a new outdoor stage on the Riverwalk. We currently have a temporary stage, and nightly we anticipate having artists on that stage free of charge to audiences. Every time I say free of charge, my staff will say, but that costs money. I'm like, it costs us money. It's free of charge to anyone who wants to walk up and experience it. I would say one of the focuses, Owen, in this expansion is creating spaces for non-ticketed events, for events for families, events for University of Tampa students, people who live downtown, people from throughout the region who want to experience non-ticketed, free of charge events. We're very excited about that.
And this ties in perfect to my next question, but can you elaborate a little bit on the overall impact arts has on the community? And you were talking about, I mean, people that come in and pay, but now you're also expanding beyond just, the insides of the walls, but outside. So what's the arts impact on the community?
So currently the Straz Center specifically calculates using and I think this is a little older calculation. There's a new one that's come out. The Americans for the Arts have a calculation we use, and we think outside of the Straz Center, out of the over 100,000 hotel room and apartment room nights we use for artists and visitors, our impact in the community is about $130 million annually.
Wow.
And that's outside of the Straz Center, and it's $50 to $60 million annual budget.
Okay.
And so that's a big impact on the community. We can see the restaurants that are building closer and closer to the Straz Center right now. All of that excites us.
Sure.
And we really are giving, because it always comes up with the Straz Center, we're in a new strategic plan.
Okay.
And we're really giving a brand new focus on parking and how we communicate parking, how we look at new parking opportunities, because this is now a big city. And it has all the great things that big cities have and all the not great things, like parking and traffic.
Sure. Welcome to being a big city.
Correct.
So a question, just out of curiosity, were you part of developing this strategic plan?
It is the great thing that the Straz Center did. A strategic plan was ended in 22.
Okay.
I got here in 22, and I said, there's not a strategic plan. They said, that's your job. So working with the team and working with the board of trustees, all of our other stakeholders and constituents, which are pretty sizable, we are developing a 3-year strategic plan. Sometimes I've learned in nonprofits that when they're 5 years, we're doing a 3-year plan so that we can be flexible with changes. You know how quickly Tampa's changing.
No, so I like the approach in terms of timing, but I also like the you didn't have to inherit someone's plan. You got to come in and take advice, but with your experience and it's under your leadership to be executed on. I mean, you have a substantial voice in that, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's about, I'm excited because it's about the community. Really, we met with stakeholder groups across the region, but specifically in Tampa, in every neighborhood in Tampa, talking about what people were looking for. And often the answer, Owen, was we really look for you to come into our neighborhood and come into our community and bring us arts education, bring us artists, help us develop artists. That's incredibly important to the Straz Center. It's always been a part of the institution's history, but we have a new view on how we do that, and that excites me the most about the strategic plan.
Well, tell us about the view.
So the view for where the Straz,
yes.
Yeah. So again, we talked about our education and expanding that. We're beginning to look outside. The way we accomplish reaching 60,000 people in the region is we have 49 community partners.
Okay.
It doesn't cost them anything to become a community partner. They just make a commitment to provide time and space for us to work with their stakeholders. So what we're starting to do is look at locations initially around Hillsborough County where we become a little more permanent with our education programs, a little more permanent with our artistic development programs, so that new and developing arts organizations can look to us and say, how do we build a strategic plan? How do we develop a nonprofit board of trustees? how are artists supported? We believe that artists should always be paid. There's this weird thing that can happen. We know why, but can happen in the arts and entertainment world where someone will say, we'd like to have a guitarist at our event, but we don't want to pay anything. And I think that's that person's job. No one comes to me and says, we really want you to budget and run this, but we don't want to pay you for it. The answer is usually probably not going to do it. So the same should be true for an artist. So
Sure.
it really is working with new artists to say, not only this is how you develop yourself artistically, but this is how you develop yourself as a business. This is how you begin earning money. This is how you save money. Here's what agents do. Here's what managers do. And once, as an artist, you've established that, you have more freedom to create your art, which is what this is all about. So, you'll see us starting to do that over the next 3 years increasingly.
Okay, so that's the physical presence within the various neighborhoods and submarkets. What about digital? Are you pursuing digital technologies? How does that come into play?
So we have. When I got, Bill West said to me about a month after I got here, he said, we're going to look for, like your president of the United States, a 180-day vision.
Okay.
I was like, oh gosh, I don't even know how to use my computer yet. But once I figured out the computer, I came up with 3 pillars for the Straz Center. And those were outward looking. The second was open center. And the third was digital forward. And the digital forward pillar really is that the Straz Center continues to build a digital access platform across everything we do, across accessibility, across things as sometimes mundane but important as ticketing. We met with the board and they were like, man, every time I go to a Rays game, I love the fact that I have a digital wallet with my tickets. We're moving toward that and working on that. We're looking at how everything that's currently printed lives in a dynamic digital form. So we'll take 3 years to do that and to roll that out. Where the Straz Center has already made huge gains before I got here. COVID played a part in this, but some of our veterans programs were streaming because of COVID. They were once live. Now they're live and they're streaming. And when we think of people who are at different points in healing, not everyone's comfortable being with other people for all sorts of reasons. And so one way to create a more open accessibility, of course, is to say, you want to be part of this program? You don't have to be sitting in a chair in the room. If tonight or forever, the most comfortable way you access this program is through streaming, we just want to know that you're getting to the program. So, COVID was horrible, but it gave us some interesting new approaches to how we bring the arts to the community. And so you'll really hear us talking. We talk a lot now about digital forward. We're creating a new position that in the commercial world would be called Director of E-commerce. It'll probably use the term e-services a little more because we're a nonprofit, and also because it will move across our education platforms. But it's an idea for your business listeners of the Straz Center and its focus on e-commerce.
Okay. So you'd mentioned it's a top 10 performing arts center.
That's right.
How do you continue to attract top shows and keep that status or, become a top 5?
Man, you're competitive. This is Owen, I'm trying not to look super competitive because I just naturally, early in my career, one of my great mentors looked at me and said, "You're too competitive." So don't get me going.
Well, I'm going to encourage you. I'm fanning the flames.
I don't think it's terrible. What the Straz Center already does, I have to say that, again, Judy Lisi's been my friend for 30 years, my predecessor.
Judy's fantastic, yeah.
And some of the work that the Straz Center's done in the commercial sector, there's a piece of our business that partners with commercial Broadway, commercial music and comedy. For example, we just put Kevin Hart on sale for a couple of performances. So, we did Hamilton last season. So we have a piece of our business that partners with commercial producers and agents and managers. And we do that because we know it's important to the development of the city. Mm-hmm. And the revenues and the profits or the surpluses in the nonprofit parlance from those shows service our mission in education and community outreach. Mm-hmm. But in that world, Judy started, the reason I brought Judy up is she actually came up with some really smart programs that for ticketing and others that were really commercial. And I'd call her and say, I love that. I want you to know I'm copying it in San Francisco. And so we would just she would say, go ahead, and I would copy it. So the Straz Center is there. The other thing that Judy started was this investment in Broadway shows, because we live in a competitive environment. You know, part of the lucky thing we have living on the west coast of Florida is that the arts are everywhere. And therefore, we have competitors everywhere.
Yes.
So we invest in Broadway shows regularly. I'm going to the opening night on Thursday of the new musical, The Notebook, based on the book and the movie, on Broadway. The Straz is an investor. Kevin McCollum, a big Broadway producer and longtime friend of both Judy and mine, is the lead producer. He produced Rent with Jeffrey Seller originally. And so we invest in those shows, and part of our investment is that the Straz is guaranteed to get the show first in the region.
Oh, fantastic.
So we do that. We talk, when we look at popular music and comedy, we're talking to the usual players in that field about the Straz, the fact that in 2023, Morsani Hall, our 2,700 seat, is that right? 2,700 seat theater was named the top grossing theater in the world.
Oh, wow.
For theaters of less than 5,000 seats. So Billboard magazine gave us that designation for the first half of 23. Then they came back and said, to your top 5, you're in the top 5.
Okay.
So we're really proud of that.
It's already there. You made it.
We've already won, Owen. But what I would tell you is,
your job's done here.
Listen, I think it's time to go home and have a beer.
It only goes down from here.
I think so. But what I would tell you is that helps us a lot, because then we can go into the commercial world and say, this is what we are. Everything that commercial producers and managers look for and that side of the business, the Straz does. And not only do we do it, but for years we've been leaders in it. That's important. We also know what's important because the city looks to us and says, give people reasons for being downtown. Give developers reasons to build condos and apartments, other businesses to open restaurants and shops. That's the other important piece of that, and we understand that responsibility, and we talk about it daily. So, you know, I find it really fulfilling every morning to walk through the doors of that institution and have all of those conversations, from outreach to education, community programs, and commercial producing and presenting. It's exciting. By the way, I want to tell you, this last fall, the Straz Center joined with London and Australian producers. We did a show called Choir of Man.
Okay.
Choir of Man was running, and I think it still is, on London's West End, Owen. There were only 2 places at the time to see that show. It was here for about 11 weeks. You could either see it in London on the West End or at the Straz Center in Tampa.
How about that?
We were really proud
Absolutely.
to be the only North American home for that musical.
So, kind of a fun question, and you can't opt out.
Okay.
So, what's your favorite show?
I knew. Well,
you can't say you love them all.
Well, I feel like I should. So it goes into a couple of categories. Fiddler on the Roof is one of my favorite musicals because I was in it when 9th grade, and I really fell in love with it. I'm originally from Oklahoma, so I don't know that I understood that everyone in it all the characters were supposed to be Jewish. I just loved the show. Dreamgirls from when I was in college, one of my favorites. Let me tell you why Hamilton. It feels like a cop-out, but I love Hamilton. But before it was on Broadway, it was off-Broadway at the Public Theater in New York. And producer Jeffrey, at the time, I also had an office in New York. I was talking to producer Jeffrey Seller, and he said, we have this little show downtown. If you get a chance to go see it. So that night I went down to the Public, and I was like, you know, it's what we do for a living. I love what we do. But, you know, sometimes seeing shows not often but can feel like work. I thought I should go see this. So I went to see Hamilton, and I was plastered to the back of my seat the whole time. I mean, I really felt like and it was true. I'm witnessing this thing that will change everything. And Hamilton did change everything. Taking the characters and saying, we're using spoken word, we're using rap, we're using R&B to tell the story of Hamilton's era and the development of the country. We're using people who come from all diverse backgrounds, actors and artists to star in those roles. And when you see it, it all makes perfect sense because as 21st century Americans, that's the world we live in. Mm-hmm. So we don't miss a beat. We're like, that's how it looks. Thank God. And so Hamilton, after that experience and being able to go opening night on Broadway at the Richard Rodgers to see Hamilton, witnessing something that's so kind of artistically changing.
Yeah, transformative.
Kind of never, that's a better word.
You can use that.
We were using it a lot in our strategic plan. They were like, enough transformative. But you can use it when you weren't part of the strategic. Yet you weren't. You could still be part of it. But transformative. And it was just wonderful. So I love Hamilton.
Let me tell you my Hamilton story.
Please, everyone's got one.
Well, my wife and girls went to Chicago for one of their girls' trips to see it, and they're trying to sell me on it, and I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I was completely. Well, I didn't mind that. Like, I love America. I love American history. Combining it with rap, I thought this is stupid. This isn't going to work. And I refused to see it live. And during COVID, I forget if it was Disney or Apple played it, and it was free and available. So we all sat around as a family and watched it and fell in love with it. And I found myself singing the song. So yes. I'm a fan also. Yeah.
And by the way, I said Dreamgirls. So in the 80s, when I saw Dreamgirls, after I saw it, if you see the stage version, it's sung through, like an opera, like Les Miserables, like Phantom of the Opera, almost like Hamilton. You can say that's sung through. And the dialogue was done to a beat, the words. And someone said to me, yeah, that's based on rap. And I was like, we'd never heard of rap. Yeah. What is rap? Yeah. That was the first time I had ever heard the word.
Okay.
And it was. So, it's been around a long time. Yeah, it's exciting. And I was one of the producers of a show on Broadway, script by Tony Kushner, Angels in America, music, Janine Tesori, and called Caroline or Change, and somewhat autobiographical to Tony Kushner. He's a Jew. He was a Jewish kid in raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, and it's an incredible musical called Caroline or Change, nominated for a Tony Award. That's also one of my favorite musicals.
Good stuff, Greg. Well, I'm excited to have you in Tampa. I love your passion. We could do this for another hour. Maybe we'll have you back for a round 2 at some point in time and hear what's going on, hear about the expansion plans. But people want to know more about the Straz Center. People want to contact you. How do they reach out?
So best way just to learn more is go to strazcenter.org. And my phone number at the Straz Center is 813-222-1007.
It's going to blow up.
So love to hear from people, and please, be in touch. I'm at the theater constantly. If no one knows what I look like, it's a podcast. But please say hello.
We have video. So
yeah, that's right.
We do.
But thank you. And again, I want to thank you, Owen. I want to thank Bank of Tampa for inviting us and for taking time to do this. It's so wonderful.
Well, thank you. You're welcome, and appreciate you coming on, and thank you for joining us on Money Market. If you have a question or a future show idea or would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and on Instagram at Bank of Tampa and online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the Money Market.